So currently LIC pays about 5% of its profit to the shareholders, which is primarily the government, and 95% to the policy holders. How will that change once you're listed and once more investors and shareholders come into the fold?
Okay, so when the regulation changed and it became from 95.5 to 90.10, Government of India continued to allow us to pay 5% to the government and 95% to the policyholders. Going forward, yes, this will change, but we will have to calibrate it and possibly change the distribution pattern, but we are still working on that, and it will change obviously, but then how it will change, the manner in which it will change is something I cannot discuss right now.
What are you looking at in terms of your profit sharing model, your product mix, persistency ratios, etc.? How are you looking at the business at this point? What are your goals?
See, LIC has always been, working hard for ensuring that we create enough people to get insurance. And there are two issues here. One is the protection gap, which is pretty high in our country. And there are two issues involved. One is basically that we get people covered for life insurance. And second is how much cover, and that is the gap that we find. Going forward, we will be able to ensure that we work on this a great deal. On persistency, we have improved substantially the last couple of years, and I think we will be able to match industry standards in 13th month or 25th or even 49th month. Going forward, we will also be working strongly on the bank insurance channel. Even though we are a very strong agency channel, our agents continue to be a big force to reckon with. And we have, let me add, that in the last year added 2 lakh agents to our portfolio. A lot of training inputs are being given to them on all the new products, as you rightly mentioned, whether it is a term which people are now really looking forward to take, whether it is unit linked insurance plans, but more on the protection part and also on the savings part. So we are working on all these areas.
When a behemoth like LIC goes to the market, it's only normal to face some hiccups. According to you, what are the major roadblocks at this juncture that stand between you and the IPO?
I would not call them roadblocks, but certain, what shall I call it, things that have not been done by others. For example, policyholder reservation is something that an LIC amendment has given enabling provision. In what manner it will come is something we are working on. So, because this is totally new, giving a policyholder reservation on IPO or any customer a reservation on IPO, I think this is the first time it's happening. So, this is a challenge, I would say, not a roadblock, and we are working to find out how we can ensure that this is streamlined and smoothened in a way that everybody is onboarded and that everybody is interested in, putting money into the LIC IPO.
And what would you say is the biggest USP or the biggest sticky factor that investors, especially the retail investors, should be betting on when it comes to LIC IPO?
I mean, what they should be betting on is the fact that we are a behemoth. This is the word you used. We have been here for pretty long, and we are probably the only insurance company globally which has stood up to competition better than anywhere else in the world. And we continue to have 65% of the market share. And going forward with the digital initiatives that we are going to take, we are going to be a force to reckon with in the future also. I think this is something the investors have to look at.
But what is your plan? Because right now, yes, you still have the lion's share of the market, but there are a lot of private players. There are several players entering, small and large, this space, and with the exposure and the awareness among consumers to buy more and more insurance. What is it that will help you, or what is your strategy to sustain or rather grab more share?
See, there is a lot of potential in India for insurance. We have just touched the tip of the iceberg. It's hardly 30% of the people have been covered. And if you look at the number of customers we have, about 25-26 crore customers, still not even 1/5 of the population. So therefore, as I said earlier also, there is a protection gap and there is a coverage gap. And therefore, there is a lot that can be done. And market share is just, a number. I believe that we will have to cover Indians first and cover them adequately, and there is a lot of work to be done there.
You have another timeline to look at, which is the stake sale in IDBI. Is there any clarity to the extent of stake sale that LIC would be looking at?
We will go with what Government of India wants us to do. But having said that, let me explain that the relationship with IDBI Bank has been very good. Our it was a strategic initiative, a strategic investment, and I believe it has paid off. They have come out of their prompt corrective action. They have come out of, they have been showing profits for the last 4-5 quarters now. And I believe there's a lot of sense and value in IDBI Bank going forward. In fact, the bancassurance tie-up with IDBI Bank has given rich dividends. They are the #1 bancassurance partner for us among all the bancassurance partners that we have. And therefore, we would like to continue the relationship in spite of whatever divestment happens based on the government action.
If I go a few years back, you bought IDBI at a value of 61 rupees per share, right? You know, right now, clearly, I mean, you're still below that buying price. But if we leave the market sentiment aside, the stock price aside, are you happy with the way things are with respect to IDBI? The benefits you've seen are on par with your expectations?
I'm sure that in the long run, IDBI Bank is going to do pretty well for itself. And you talked about the figure of 61. I mean, on an average, I think it's around 55, 56 that we bought it at. Recently, the stock has gone up to 61, 62. So therefore, there is a good valuation being seen by the market also. And I believe that in the long run, it will really do well.
You were talking about, you know, investing for the long term. But right now, when you go public, people will be looking at the short-term moves that LIC is making, and probably quarter after quarter, there will be much more scrutiny, much more answerability to shareholders, even minority shareholders. Are you prepared for that?
We are very mindful of that. We are conscious of that. And therefore, when we get listed, obviously, we will have to do all those things that a listed company does. Yeah. And we are working internally to create those kind of teams that will take care of these things in the long run, basically investor relations and talking to the shareholders, talking to investors is something that we are preparing for.
COVID clearly has changed the way business is done and insurance is bought, right? So what are the big changes in consumer behavior that you've been witnessing post the pandemic?
See, insurance is all about creating awareness, and that is what insurance companies have been doing for decades now. But one thing that happened during COVID is that the awareness got created automatically because of the pandemic, because people realized that a basic financial product like insurance was absolutely essential. But then with the fading away of the pandemic, I believe to some extent that awareness also is going away. So we need to ensure that our people, intermediaries, keep talking to people and making them understand and believe that insurance as a product, as a basic financial product is absolutely essential. Not only as a product, but also in the long term, the gains that you get, maybe in a ULIP kind of product, also the protection that it gives you and your family is something that people are beginning to realize now. And that is, I think, giving some uptake in terms of sale of term, in terms of sale of these products that we have.
And what changes, what long-lasting changes has LIC made in the way business is done?
So when the pandemic happened, we started working from home like everyone else did. We already had, work from home licenses, VPN licenses as you call them, 12,000 of them. So we were ready for it in a way. And therefore, our equity market operations were not hampered at all, even from day one, even when the entire lockdown happened. Also, people started working from home. We ensured that people had the data available to them at home to settle claims. So we did not stop doing all those things that are required to be done to ensure that the customer keeps himself safe. At the same time, we created digital platforms. In fact, we have almost 70-75% growth in digital collections of renewal premium during the pandemic. So people have now come to believe that they can easily transact with insurance, whether taking a new policy or whether paying renewal premiums.
Okay. A lot of consolidation is taking place in the insurance space. Of course, FDI will open further more opportunities when it comes to investment, consolidation, etc. The street is attributing very attractive valuations to many of your peers as well. Overall, when you look at it, how do you assess the competitive landscape right now, and how do you see things shaping up?
Look, insurance industry is very competitive, very highly competitive, and that is the one reason why we've been able to, scale up the operations of insurance per se. Having said that, LIC has not been behind. As I said earlier, we have been equally competitive, and we will continue to be competitive in terms of whether it is digital platform, whether it is bank assurance tie-ups, or any other product innovations and things like that, which we are working on separately. Yes, it's going to be hugely competitive market, but LIC is there, definitely.
LIC is not just an insurer, it's also a big investor in the markets. We'd like to understand your assessment of the market environment right now, because from what we understand, in the last few months, you have been booking profits. Will that continue going forward as well? How are you looking at the markets at this juncture?
We are not really trimming stakes. We have been booking profits, no doubt, but we have been net buyers. We have not been net sellers. And this is because the pandemic gave us opportunities to do that. And therefore, wherever we felt the need to make some profits, we made profits. But going forward, markets, I believe, are going to sort of taper off. They are not going to be as strong as they were. And we will be watching it very carefully to ensure that, as I said, we are long-term investors. We choose to buy and remain with the stock for a long time. But then, keeping in mind the policyholders' reasonable expectations, we did some profit booking to ensure that bonuses are paid out.
Post this listing, do you expect the government to look at further strategic sale or getting a foreign investor or a private investor? Because if I were to ask you, where do you see LIC or how do you see LIC over the next 5 to 7 years, what would be your answer?
I don't know about other investors coming in, but I would say this, that LIC has been resilient in competitiveness right from the opening up of the industry. And with the listing, I am sure that we are going to emerge stronger and we will be far more competitive than people think we are going to be.
Okay, one last question. One thing that you are most looking forward to going to the markets?
No, it's very exciting. I mean, absolutely. All of us at LIC in the entire building here and down entire country are excited about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. But we're just, going every day, doing whatever needs to be done on a daily basis to ensure that, we make this a very successful IPO. So let's hope and pray that that happens.